Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
This happened many years ago while I was shopping at Walmart. You know how it goes. You walk in needing one thing and somehow end up browsing through stuff you never knew you wanted. That day, I was exploring the tool and automotive section, searching for a better impact wrench and some nice floor mats for my truck. I've always liked my vehicle accessories. Nothing fancy, but practical enough to keep the mud and dirt contained. About my appearance that day, I have this thing for vests. I find them comfortable and practical with all the pockets. That day I wore my light blue one. It's one of my favorites. Light blue with sparkly swirls all over it and little tassels hanging from the pockets. Not exactly subtle, but I liked it. I was comparing two different sets of floor mats when I heard someone behind me. A woman called out cheerfully for help. When I turned around, I realized my mistake. The woman, probably in her early 30s with a perfect smile, was looking at me expectantly. That's when it clicked. My vest was almost the same shade of blue as the Walmart employee uniforms. Despite the obvious differences, the sparkles, the tassels, no name tag or other Walmart identifiers, she had decided I worked there. Being helpful by nature, I figured I could assist her anyway. I asked how I could help her. She explained that she needed a video game from the locked cabinet and asked if I could get it for her. I chuckled, realizing the misunderstanding. I explained that I thought she needed help with something heavy, or reaching something high, but clarified that I didn't work there and didn't have keys to those cabinets. As I was explaining, I watched her face change. The sweet smile turned into a tight-lipped grimace. Her eyes narrowed, and the friendly manner disappeared completely. She started raising her voice, demanding to know what I meant by not working there when I was clearly wearing a blue vest. She told me I was lying to her face. I tried to calm her down by pointing out the sparkles and tassels on my vest, explaining again that this wasn't a Walmart uniform. This only made her angrier. She threatened to get me fired, her voice getting louder with each word and drawing attention from nearby shoppers. I continued trying to calm the situation, keeping my voice even and asking her to lower hers. I repeated that I was just another customer, and even though I'd like to help, I couldn't unlock those cabinets. She wasn't listening. She called me lazy and complained that employees like me thought we could ignore customers whenever we wanted. She mentioned her son had been waiting for this game for weeks. I tried again to make her understand, telling her I genuinely wasn't an employee. This pushed her over the edge. She started screaming about me telling lies to an innocent woman who was just trying to get a present for her son. By this point, she was screaming so loudly that her face was red. Then something happened that I wasn't ready for. She slowly raised her open hand, pulling it all the way back. Time seemed to slow down as I watched her prepare to slap me. Three thoughts flashed through my mind in that split second. First, I could defend myself. I'm not a small guy, and this woman was about to hit me. Second, there probably weren't any cameras in this aisle, and most people would take the pretty woman's word over the large, oddly dressed man's if this turned into a he said, she said situation. Third, maybe I should just take the hit and let the security cameras catch her hitting me. I chose option 3, but I made a mistake. When her hand hit my face, I went with the slap too dramatically. I lost my balance and my head smashed into a nearby shelf. I dropped to the floor and felt blood trickling down my face. From the ground, I heard a gasp. Another woman said something in shock. This witness had heard the noise and arrived just in time to see the entire slap. When I looked up at my attacker, I didn't see remorse or shock on her face. All I saw was fear. Not concern for hurting someone, but fear of what would happen to her. The woman tried to run away. The witness shouted for her to stop and called for someone to get security. Acting on instinct, I reached out and grabbed the fleeing woman's ankle. She lost her balance and fell forward, slamming her face hard against the floor. I didn't mean for her to get hurt, but I couldn't let her escape after what she'd done. Security arrived quickly, followed by the store manager. Statements were taken, first aid was given. Mine was just a flesh wound, head cuts tend to bleed a lot, and the police were called. The witness told what happened, backing up my version of events. Store cameras from nearby aisles had caught the woman yelling, though not the actual hit. I later found out that when the woman fell, she lost her two front teeth. I felt bad about that despite everything. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I just didn't want her to get away with hitting me. While we waited for the police, the woman kept saying that I had attacked her first. She claimed I was a lying employee who refused to do my job. The store manager corrected her, confirming I didn't work there. He showed her my receipt from earlier purchases that day. She still wouldn't give up, suggesting that I must be an off-duty employee, pointing at my vest as evidence. The manager had to explain that Walmart uniforms don't include sparkly vests with tassels. When the police arrived, they took statements from everyone, including several witnesses who had seen parts of what happened. The evidence was clear. As they took the woman to the police car, she shouted threats. She threatened to sue the store and claimed they couldn't do this to her. She falsely accused me of hitting her and threatened everyone's jobs. I simply said that all I did was wear a blue vest. She continued her tirade, saying I would regret this and bragging that she knew important people. Watching her get placed in the back of that police car while still screaming threats was satisfying. The officer told me she was being charged with assault and would likely face a fine and possibly community service. The store manager apologized and even offered me a gift card for my troubles, which I accepted. My shopping trip had turned into quite an adventure, and I had a bandage on my forehead to show for it. I retired that blue vest after that day. It was a favorite, but some things aren't worth the trouble. I became a business owner at 18. My grandfather ran a successful establishment in the UK that combined catering and sports facilities. We had a full kitchen with multiple ovens, a team of chefs and kitchen porters, plus sports equipment sales, tennis courts, a track field, and even mountain bike trails. When he passed away, he left it all to me. 3 weeks after inheriting the business, I decided it was time to properly introduce myself to the staff. I dressed casually in dark jeans and a black t-shirt with our logo and drove to the staff car park. This would be my first time meeting the managers since the funeral. I started at the bar where the bar manager showed me around. He asked if I wanted to change anything about their current system. I told him no, but requested that they clean everything if there were no customers. He nodded and went back to work. Next, I visited the head chef. I greeted her, mentioning that we had met at my grandfather's funeral. I asked her to show me how everything worked so I could help out when things got busy. She gave me a tour, pointing out the food prep section, where kitchen porters washed dishes, the oven aisle, and where they stored everything. After showing me around, she asked if I needed to know anything else. I thanked her and said that covered everything. By this point, we'd been open for about half an hour. I changed into a staff shirt so I could blend in while helping. I wanted to lead from the front rather than just give orders. I headed to the sports department and introduced myself to an employee there. I told the sports employee that I was the new owner and explained I was there to see how everyone worked and how I could help later. The employee said the bar manager had mentioned my visit to the sports department. They explained that they worked like a normal clothes shop selling items for various sports. They also mentioned managing the tennis courts, track field, and mountain bike trails, plus hiring out bikes and equipment. I thanked them and said I'd talk to them later, as I wanted to help out behind the bar. For the first couple of hours, everything went smoothly as I helped serve customers at the bar. Then it happened. This woman walked up to the bar while I was pouring a pint for another customer. She huffed while waiting for me to finish. The bar manager was taking out bins and other staff were delivering drinks to tables. After I finished and placed the pint on a tray with the bill, I turned to the clearly drunk woman. I greeted her and asked how I could help. She complained that I had taken too long and ordered a pint of Carlsberg with a shot of vodka. I said that I couldn't serve her because it would break our license, as I couldn't sell alcohol to someone already drunk. She got angry, claiming that the owner normally let her have what she wanted. She threatened to call him and get me fired. She yelled loud enough for the bar manager to hear as he returned from taking out bins and having a cigarette. The bar manager came over and asked what the problem was. The woman, still yelling, told him that I had refused to give her a pint of Carlsberg and a shot of vodka. The bar manager looked at me and noticed my expression, saying, "Just play along." Before he could finish his sentence, the woman cut him off. She demanded that I be fired right away, insisting she was a loyal customer who knew the owner, who always gave her what she wanted. The bar manager told her that he couldn't fire me because I was the owner. This made her even angrier. She was mad that I hadn't told her I was the owner right away. Then, to everyone's shock, she hit me in the face. I stumbled backward and my nose started bleeding. One of our customers called the police, who arrived minutes later. One officer took the woman aside to hear her story, while another helped me clean up before taking my statement. When the officers brought us back together, I saw that the woman was in handcuffs. The officers told me she claimed I had been rude and mean toward her and simply refused to serve her order without reason. My bar manager backed up my story, as did the customer who called the police. The officers asked if I wanted to press charges. I said yes and added that she was banned from the place forever. The woman left kicking and screaming as the officers took her away. I thanked them for their help, then went over to the customer who had called the police and told them their next 2 rounds were on the house. In the weeks that followed, I learned that this woman had been a problem customer for some time. My grandfather had been too easy on her, which only made her entitled behavior worse. Under my new management, we set clear rules for customer behavior, and our staff seemed relieved. The incident became something of a local legend, and business actually improved afterward. Word spread that the new young owner wouldn't tolerate abuse toward staff or customers. That first day set the tone for how I would run the business, with respect for both customers and employees, but no tolerance for entitled behavior. I work as a traffic controller for a contracting company in Pennsylvania. For those who don't know what that means, I'm the guy who sets up orange traffic cones and holds the stop slow sign at construction sites. Let me tell you something about this job. People hate us. I get it. Nobody likes being delayed on their commute, even if it's just for a few minutes. But most folks don't understand I'm there for everyone's safety. I'm making sure construction workers don't get hit by cars, and drivers don't accidentally drive through dangerous work zones. I've developed thick skin over the years. Being overweight most of my life and not having a girlfriend until my late 20s meant I was used to people looking at me funny or making comments behind my back. So when drivers curse at me or flip me off because I'm holding them up, it doesn't bother me much. Last Tuesday, we were working at a tricky spot, a busy intersection with a big S-bend leading into it. I was at the top of a hill, and my job was to make sure cars slowed down before hitting that bend. We had 4 traffic controllers that day instead of the usual 2 because of how busy and dangerous this intersection was. My instructions were clear. Only stop traffic when radioed to do so, which would happen when work trucks needed to move in or out of the work zone. Otherwise, just keep traffic flowing slowly. For the first couple of hours, everything was going smoothly. Then I got the call on my radio to hold traffic. I flipped my sign to stop and all the cars came to a halt. That's when I heard it, this ungodly honking coming from a few cars back. I looked down the line and saw a shiny Mercedes with some lady laying on her horn and screaming out her window. I sighed. We get one of these almost every day. She got out of her car and started walking up the hill toward me. I can't leave my post when I'm holding traffic, but I was ready to defend myself with my sign if needed. When she reached me, she asked what I was doing. I told her I was holding traffic. She told me to let everyone through because she needed to get to the airport. I said that we had workers moving down there, so she would have to wait. She said the situation was ridiculous and told me she had to go, stretching out the word like a child. When I tried to apologize again, she cut me off and called me an addict and a good-for-nothing slimeball. She told me to get out of her way and do my job before walking back to her car. The insults didn't bother me, but something about her entitled attitude and that do my job comment sparked something in me. She wanted me to do my job? Well, all right then. When I got the call to let traffic through, I noticed something interesting. The 2 cars that had been behind her Mercedes had turned off onto side roads. That meant she was now the last car in the line. Perfect. I radioed down to my coworker at the bottom of the hill and told him I was going to hold traffic up here for a bit after this line goes through, just giving him a heads up. By law in Pennsylvania, I can hold traffic for up to 15 minutes if needed. So I let all the cars in front of her go through and then flipped my sign back to stop just as she was about to move. She put her car in park and got out again. She asked what I was doing. I told her there was an obstruction in the road and she would need to wait until it was moved. The obstruction was my lunchbox that I had tossed into the middle of the road after stopping her. For the next 15 minutes, she went ballistic. She ranted about missing her flight, called me a dirty convict, and threatened to call my supervisor, the police, and even the governor. I just stood there nodding, watching the seconds tick by on my watch. Only one other car came up during this time and they turned into a driveway, so I wasn't bothering any innocent drivers with my little revenge scheme. When exactly 15 minutes had passed, I walked out, picked up my lunchbox, and flipped my sign to SLOW. As she drove by, she rolled down her window and asked what I had been doing, calling me a jerk. I told her I was just doing my job. She seemed to realize I had held her up on purpose, but there was nothing she could do about it. She sped away, tires squealing on the pavement. When we finished up the job that evening, my coworkers asked what that whole situation was about. I told them the story, and they couldn't stop laughing. One guy nearly choked on his coffee. I don't know if that lady made her flight or not. Part of me hopes she didn't, but another part of me just hopes she learned her lesson. Don't mess with traffic controllers. We might not have much power in this world, but we can ruin your day if you push us too far. I remember that job like it was yesterday, even though it was many moons ago. I worked for this guy who ran an online book business out of this old warehouse building. He was an interesting character, the type who'd buy top-of-the-line computers but save money everywhere else. The building showed his weird spending habits. No central heating in the entire place, just 2 portable heaters that we'd huddle around during winter. The fire extinguishers had expired long ago, but those computers were something else. Latest models with all the extras. My job was inventory management. I spent most of my time in what we called the book room, a large storage area where we kept all our inventory organized. The room had one window which was completely blacked out, maybe to protect the books from sunlight, who knows. The book room relied on overhead lighting, 5 fluorescent fixtures that buzzed but worked well enough, until they didn't. One day, one light flickered out. No big deal, I thought. But days passed and it wasn't replaced. Then another one went dark. I told my boss about it. My boss told me he would fix it soon, but he didn't. Then a third light died. The room was getting very dim. I was squinting to read book titles and using my phone flashlight to check conditions. I told my boss we needed those light bulbs replaced because I could barely see what I was doing. He said things were tight right now, and they would get to it when they could. Things continued until the 4th light went out. I could barely function in the room. The single remaining light made weird shadows that made everything harder to see. I told my boss I couldn't do my job without proper lighting, and it was becoming unsafe too. He just told me to be careful and said they would handle it eventually. Then the last light burnt out. The book room became a cave. I went to my boss, completely fed up. I told him the last light was gone and I couldn't work in darkness. He sighed like I was being difficult, opened his desk drawer, and pulled out a small hand-cranked flashlight. He told me to use this for now. I looked at the tiny wind-up torch. I asked if he was serious. He said it was good for the environment and needed no batteries. I took the torch back to my desk. The thing was about the size of a small banana, made of cheap plastic, with a crank you had to wind to get a few minutes of dim yellow light. When wound, it made this awful grinding noise that sounded like a small animal being hurt. The next morning, my boss came in while I was sorting new books at my desk. He told me he needed those first edition mystery novels processed today. I nodded. I said I would go to the book room right away. I grabbed the little torch and right there next to his desk, I started winding it. The noise was horrible, like a tiny blender full of rocks. I cranked it for a full minute while looking him in the eye. He asked if I had to do that right there. I said sorry and told him it needed a full wind to give enough light to see the book spines. I kept winding it and then walked to the book room. I worked for about 5 minutes until the light dimmed, then returned to my boss's desk. I said I needed more light. This became my routine. Every time he asked me to do anything in the book room, I would stand near him and wind that torch with great effort. The noise was impossible to ignore or get used to. After 3 days, he was clearly annoyed. He asked if I could wind that thing somewhere else. I said then I'd have to walk all the way back when it died in 5 minutes, which would waste work time, and I was trying to be efficient. A week passed. I found reasons to visit the book room whenever he was on important phone calls. While covering the phone, he asked me to do that later. I said sorry and told him a customer needed this rare book urgently and it couldn't wait. I even timed my lunch breaks around his meetings, making sure to wind my torch right as he was trying to impress business partners. 2 weeks into this standoff, I noticed him rubbing his temples a lot. The sound was getting to him. During an important conference call, I did my most aggressive winding yet. After hanging up, he said that was it, and he would buy the light bulbs today. I said that would be wonderful, and thanked him. That afternoon, he returned with a box of fluorescent tubes. He even installed them himself, probably to avoid paying someone else. As I worked in the newly lit book room, he looked in. He asked if I was happy now. I told him I was very happy and thanked him for fixing the problem. He told me not to lose the torch because it might be useful someday. I told him I was keeping it on my desk because we might need it again. I put the little torture device on my desk as a trophy and warning. Every time he walked by and saw it, we both knew who had won this battle. The light bulbs were always replaced during my time there. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.